Hello and welcome to another episode of Fully Charged News. Now, a quick update for our UK viewers. The electric drive-inside cinema. I was so excited about this. Finally, we could get one event in the UK. Inside a building, drive your electric car inside, watch an amazing film. Safe. We can't do it. We can do the drive-in cinema, but not inside. We have to do it in the car park outside. It's the new government regulations. There's nothing we can do about it. I'm very disappointed that we can't have it inside, but we're still having it. So that's just to announce that the drive-in cinema is going ahead. I know it's going to be a great event. I know there are still tickets left for the Friday night, Friday the 30th of October, and the Sunday night, the 1st of November. I think the other shows have sold out, but all information about it is on the fullycharged.show website. And hot off the press, some of those that have booked tickets for our drive-in screenings might even get the chance to test drive a Polestar 2 at the events. Now, I just want to say all the stories that I'm doing in this week's news episode, the links to those stories and further reading are in the show notes or the description box beneath this video. And now, breaking news! Okay, so I'm recording this slightly later than I recorded the rest of this episode, simply because there is some breaking news that is extremely and highly relevant to Fully Charged Show. Our Prime Minister in the UK, Prime Minister Johnson, has just made an announcement at the Conservative Party conference. He's just announced this massive increase in support for the wind industry, particularly the offshore wind industry. And without question, it is an amazing achievement what's happened in this country. What the incredible Danish, Norwegian, German companies, American companies have actually managed to produce in terms of offshore wind is remarkable. They've employed people in this country. Very sadly, there's a very small local, actual indigenous wind industry in this country because it's been decimated over the last 15 years by successive governments who had no understanding of the importance it would play. And many people in the party that Boris Johnson is the leader of have been incredibly negative about wind power for decades. But now, suddenly, it's the flavour of the month. So I'm trying not to be cynical about it. It is a really good thing that our current administration understand the benefits of investing in wind power. Now, some figures have been bandied about today, and I'm not even going to comment on them, other than to say it's not very much when you compare it to the amount that we're subsidising the fossil fuel industry and the nuclear industry. It's just on a completely different scale. So this is, in a sense, fairly a token, but it's a really good token. And I am very much in support of what the government is doing to promote offshore wind. So the idea is that they're going to take offshore wind from the current target, which is 30 gigawatts, which is roughly what this country is running on at any one moment, and up to 40 gigawatts. And what that does, particularly once you've got storage involved, it means that you can essentially run, 80, 90% of the country just on wind, not counting solar, just on wind. You add solar into the mix, you add storage into the mix, and you're looking at by in 10 years' time, one of the cleanest grids in the world next to Norway, basically. And what Prime Minister Johnson is saying is that we'll be able to run our homes, heat our homes, and run our electric cars off the breezes, as he described them, that blow around these sceptred isles. So he'll be using a lot of Churchillian and Shakespearean language to describe it because he loves a bit of florid language like that, because it makes him sound more intelligent. Sorry, a little bit of cynicism creeping in there. It's good. I'm determined to stick with the idea that the fact that this government, in the current climate, which is not exactly conducive to positive forward thinking, in the current climate is exhibiting some positive forward thinking. End of breaking news. Norway, once again, are showing what can happen when circumstances are right. The latest figures show that electric car sales utterly dominate. In September, 82% of new cars sold in Norway had a plug. Now, some of those plug-in vehicles were hybrids. And I recently had a very, very polite discussion on Twitter about the continuing relevance of hybrid vehicles. Some people are arguing that mild and plug-in hybrids are an important bridging technology to get people used to and accepting of electric vehicles. I agreed they were really, really important from about 2000 to about 2015. I certainly benefited from that journey. I went from petrol and diesel to hybrid, to a plug-in hybrid, to a pure electric. That was a very common journey, but what we are talking around the years around 2009, 10, 11, 12, that period. Not now. It's so much easier now to go from a petrol car to a pure electric car and just reap the benefits. So I would argue that hybrid technology is now irrelevant, and sales figures from Norway really underline that fact. 61% of new car sales are pure electric, and a mere 20% are plug-in hybrid. I'm not talking mild hybrid or self-charging hybrid, I'm talking plug-in hybrid. And while I'm on the topic of plug-in hybrids, some not so good news has come out about them recently from Germany, from the Fraunhofer Institute for Systems and Innovation Research. Couple of things about plug-in hybrids that didn't really surprise me. Essentially, plug-in hybrids in normal use, when you plug them in regularly, turn out to be a little less efficient than advertised. The Fraunhofer Institute discovered that PHEVs, plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, real fuel consumption and CO2 emissions are between 2 and 4 times greater than the tests carried out by NEDC or WLTP. Basically, NEDC and WLTP, I think I've said it many times on this show, is pretty pointless even looking at figures that come out of those tests. They're just not accurate. And this is the same for all petrol cars, all diesel cars, all mild hybrids, all plug-in hybrids, all electric cars. It always says WLTP, 375 miles. No, it can't go that far unless it's constantly going downhill. Now, yes, of course, there are very multiple reasons as to why sales of electric cars are so high in Norway. Massive tax breaks if you buy an electric car, massive tax punishment if you buy a petrol or diesel car. You know, so you could say, well, that's not fair. It's not fair on petrol and diesel cars. I don't think this argument is about being fair. They have the money and the political will to do it. Yes, they have massive sovereign wealth fund, which comes from us buying their gas and oil. They have a very, it's a very wealthy country with a very high standard of living. We all know that. Norwegians are lucky. I would argue that in midwinter they're less lucky because, it's pretty dark there. But anyway, they're all lovely and they've all got electric cars. But here's one of the reasons I think it's important to remember. You can have a government that goes, you've got to buy an electric car. It's the most important thing you could do. Here's a tax break. If the cars are rubbish, if they don't work, if they're constantly breaking down, if the batteries wear out, if they're unreliable, if there's nowhere to charge them, people aren't going to buy them. And in Norway, they are queuing up in droves to buy electric cars. In a year's time, those figures will be 80% pure battery electric, probably even higher than that. No one is going to buy a combustion vehicle anymore in Norway. So that's a really positive news story. And here's one that is positive, but rather sad from a sentimental point of view. The Mitsubishi i-MiEV, the innovative Mitsubishi innovative electric vehicle. I don't know, that was what i-MiEV stood for. They've stopped making them finally. Now, it's a brilliant little car. I had one for a whole year. That's really what started off fully charged over 10 years ago. Now, I didn't know this, but the i-MiEV was launched in 50 countries around the world. Mitsubishi really pushed it, and it sold about 32,000 cars, which is, more than a handful, but it's not really staggering or breathtaking. Around the whole world, 32,000. The Nissan LEAF, which was launched a year later, has now sold over 500,000. That is quite a lot. But when the i-MiEV came out, it was cutting edge. It did 100 miles on a charge. Notice I looked around. That's a sign of lying, because I know it didn't quite do 100. It did about 85, maybe, if you were lucky in the summer, and about 70 in the winter. But it was a brilliant car. I loved it. I was part of the Technology Strategy Board trial, which distributed a number of these cars. And it was really pivotal in the fully charged journey. A really, really fantastic car. Loads of stories about it. Not going to tell you them now. Anyway, let's move on. What about a Beefy LEAF? Oh, I love a Beefy LEAF. Do you? Where's a Beefy LEAF? Anywhere where there's a problem, there's going to be a Beefy LEAF. So a Beefy LEAF is in fact called the ReLEAF, RE-LEAF, Relief. Get it? So many of you will remember the terrible earthquakes and tsunamis in Japan in 2011, Fukushima and all that. But Fukushima was really a minor aspect of it. That was a nuclear power station that went a bit boomy wrong and explodey stuff. But far more people were killed by the tsunami. It was an appalling natural disaster. It was really terrible. Well, in the recovery period immediately after that, the rescue services discovered that electric cars were far more reliable. And you've got to remember, this was really early on in the electric car development. And they were using Mitsubishi i-MiEVs and Nissan LEAFs because they could get into the areas that were badly affected, and they had electricity resupplied faster than the fuel stations were all destroyed by the waves. So you couldn't refuel a car. What they also discovered is you could take power from the cars to run emergency lighting and things like that. Nissan at the time supplied 66 specially adapted Nissan LEAFs that could deliver power to remote areas and aid in the rescue and recovery. So now Nissan have taken it a step further with the RELEAF. RELEAF. Yeah, it's good. Now, this is a heavily beefed up Nissan LEAF which can enter disaster areas, supply power and communications, carry life-saving equipment and cope with damaged and debris-covered roads. And it's got flashing lights. Over a period of 24 hours, the RELEAF can power an electric jackhammer or a pressure ventilation fan or an intensive care medical ventilator or 100 watts of LED floodlights. So properly useful in emergency situations. Very cool. Very impressed with that, Nissan. Anyway, enough of that. It's rant time. Okay, let me just check my calendar. Oh yes, it's 2020. Right, so it's the 20th year in the 21st century. In the last 30 years, I've seen remarkable technological breakthroughs in terms of energy generation, supply, storage and use. Different types of technology that don't require us to burn non-replaceable fuels. And yet a local council in Cumbria, which is in the northwest of England, have just given planning permission for a new, not a refurbished or reopening, no, a new coal mine in 2020. Now, I also had a bit of a ding-dong about this on Twitter because some people argued, oh, well, I should understand that they're not digging up coal to generate electricity. They're digging up coal to be used in making steel. Because at the moment, the only way we can make steel, this is what you're told, you'll be told this many times, the only way we can make steel is to burn coal. Lots of electricity, lots of coal to be able to produce steel. We know that. So that is true. I'm not arguing with that because that's how we've done it always. That's how we've made steel from the first day we ever made it, which is very high temperature coal within a huge furnace with lots of air going, and then it pours out, and then it sparks. I've been in a steel plant and it is unimaginable. If you stand near where white hot liquid metal is pouring out of a massive bucket, you feel the heat. You can warm your hands on it, even on a chilly winter day. It's just unimaginably huge. So you need a lot of energy to be able to make steel, and we all rely on steel. It's very hard to live your life without having any steel products in it whatsoever. They want to burn masses of coal, and they use the excuse, well, what about employment? Some people have got to have a proper job. Digging up coal, a manly job. Digging up coal to burn to make manly steel. Well, no, you don't have to. You can use wishy-washy, tree-hugging hydrogen. And I'm going, oh, can you really use that? Yes, you can. I've already reported this. There is a functioning, operating steel plant making steel in Sweden. They don't make rubbish steel. They make some of the best steel in the world. In Sweden, it's not using any fossil fuels. It's using renewable energy. It's using battery storage. It's using hydrogen. So what do? We open a new coal mine. A new coal mine in 2020. Instead of investing and investing in new technologies that can replace burning fossil fuels, we open a coal mine. I mean, thankfully, even in this country, our current administration has gone, I say, chaps, hang on a minute with the coal mine thing. It's not going to be popular. It's too challenging. It's not going to go down well with the general public because they're a bit iffy about the whole coal thing. Enough. Happy story, please. Yes, got a happy story. An electric estate car. I cannot tell you how many tweets I've had. When is there going to be an electric estate car? Not all people who drive electric estate cars have a nasal voice like that. Not all of them. Anyway, yes, there is going to be an electric estate car. It'll be available in this country in November. It's called the MG5 EV. It is a proper estate car. It's all looking rather positive. Now, it has a 52 kilowatt hour battery with a 200-mile range, a realistic 200-mile range or 320-kilometre range. And it costs around £24,500 or €27,000 or $31,000. Pretty damn cheap for a big estate car. It's built in China. Now, some of you will remember that I drove the MG ZS recently. We did a test drive of it. And apart from the rather quirky charging cover on the charger at the front, that is a really good car. It's really well made. I know of 3 people who've bought those cars from new and rave about them. They absolutely love them. And the ranges they're getting is above what I expected. They're really fuel efficient, really nice cars. So this is looking very good, the MG5 EV. It has a fuel efficiency of 3.6 miles or 5.7 kilometres to the kilowatt hour, which is actually very good for a car that size. So MG5 EV customer deliveries begin in November. And hopefully we'll get to test drive this car soon because I think it looks very, very positive indeed. And another good news story coming up now. You can now travel from Dundee to Edinburgh by coach. Now, I apologise. I just couldn't help it. It was the word Dundee. It just came out a bit Scottishy. It's Dundee to Edinburgh. Big deal, I hear you say. It's only 62 miles. So what? A coach going like that? It's been happening for decades. Yes, it has. Diesel coaches have been doing those journeys for decades. But this is an electric coach. It has a 241 kilowatt hours battery, and it does the 124-mile round trip. 124 miles is about 170 kilometres. And then it tops up each time it gets back to Dundee. It charges, then it does it again. And it charges overnight. And it's been running already since the beginning of October, and it's really successful. And it's run by a company called Ember, who run this service, and they're selling their tickets considerably cheaper than competing services that do the same route in diesel buses. We're going to see this happening more and more. Now, just quickly, to go back to a story we have covered in the past, I think this is relevant to Fully Charged and the news. The Tesla truck is probably, when it comes out, who knows? But it clearly works. We've seen them driving along the road. We've seen them pulling things. There's lots and lots of footage of them charging at superchargers around America. So, they work. Whether they're any good, whether they're economically viable, who knows? I'm not going to even suggest that. But there was another competing truck company called Nikola, the Nikola truck company, which has been a spot of bother recently. So Nikola were promising enormously positive things with their range of battery and hydrogen electric trucks. And it was a whole new business model. It was very exciting. There's a man called Trevor Milton who was running it, and he was really good at pitching it, and it sounded amazing. And hopefully it will be amazing, but it really turned to poo for them when the footage they released of one of their Nikola trucks barreling along a desert road looked really impressive. This hydrogen fuel cell truck, it was actually just freewheeling down a hill, and they tilted the camera to make it look like it was going along flat ground. Kind of shoddy. Kind of a bit of a con job. It's very, very difficult to not be slightly cynical about all that. But anyway, that's them. Let's forget them. We'll move on. Now, there's a well-established Swedish truck maker. They're called Scania, and they have launched a pure electric truck with a slightly firmer grip on plausibility, just possibly the Nikola. This truck has a 300 kilowatt-hour battery capacity. It actually works now and can tow a trailer up to 250 kilometres or about 155 miles. There's going to be people I know that probably won't watch this show going, 155 miles is nothing in a truck. I drive 10 million miles a week. A huge amount of truck movements are under 100 miles. Some massively over it, and at the moment an electric truck will not suffice for that, but believe me, the technology that will make it suffice will come. It can charge at 130 kilowatts, and it would take around an hour and a half to charge it. So you're driving along a motorway, you stop for an hour and a half to have your lunch, slightly longer than you would do, but you have to stop when you're a truck driver. You're not allowed to do like some, I'm going to say it, pillock commented on Twitter the other day that he drove his diesel car non-stop for something like 8 hours. That is it's one, it's illegal. 2, it's really dangerous. 3, you'll ruin your bladder, you great. So Scania are accepting orders for this truck now. It's going to be interesting to see who first grabs it, because electric trucks are still a really an emerging business. Loads of people are doing them. Mercedes are doing them. Ford are doing, it's happening. We're going to see big electric trucks. Okay, so that's cars, coaches, trucks, and now VTOL delivery drones. Sir, we have a VTOL delivery drone in Sector 7. Sound the alarm. And just to quickly explain for those of you who don't know, VTOL, VTOL, is an abbreviation of vertical takeoff and landing. I think this strikes me as slightly more plausible, slightly more likely to happen slightly sooner than a VTOL taxi. This machine doesn't carry people, it carries cargo. And this is what's really cool about this. It has the added advantage, it can take off, but then it can fly, because it's got wings. It's massively more fuel efficient than a helicopter. So I'm loving all the amazing new designs that are emerging since we've started to think about electrifying flight. That's enough for this news episode, but very exciting. I can't wait to do more on flight. We're actually going to see very soon a hydrogen fuel cell aeroplane flying around, which has been already been flown around and tested. Really exciting potential for that. Much longer distances they can travel than pure battery electric. That's all. Going to shut up now. I just want to say thank you to some really super special Patreons who donate $10 a month or more to keep Fully Charged on your screens. And they are Ellery Stevens, Stephen Wensley, Danger Boy, James Knight, Peter Gorton, David Price, Nigel Wickenden, Patrick Kier Jessen, Lars Olivius, Lars Drakblod, Jonathan Price, Nigel Miles, John Falconer, Julian Carter, Brian Stewart, Steve Randall, Sven Leckerbonnier, John Miles, Zappy Benelux, and Daryl Perry. Thank you so much for your support. Please do subscribe to Fully Charged if you haven't already. Please do have a look at the YouTube memberships, which is growing, and we're doing more and more stuff with YouTube memberships. Please do have a look at the Patreon link that is beneath this video. And as always, if you have been, thank you for watching.